Hello and welcome to Taiwan Talks. I'm Yin Kavat. It was described as a train wreck for Democrats and a done deal for Republicans. The 81-year-old current president debating the 78-year-old former president. One a good old man, the other a less old man with a criminal conviction. Why did Joe Biden teams push for a debate so early before the official nominations of both parties? And does this make it easier to change the Democratic ticket, as some Democrats have been mulling since Biden's performance in Atlanta? While the focus for stepping aside was aimed at Biden, should more attention have been paid to Donald Trump and his untruths and exaggerations? And what do each man's China policies mean for great power rivalry and the future of Taiwan? Joining us today are Alexander Huang, Council on Strategic Wargaming Studies Chair, and Hsin-hsin, Soochow University Department of Sociology Associate Professor. Welcome to you both to Taiwan Talks today. Let's take a look at some polling done by CNN, which showed that 67% of registered voters who watched the debate thought Trump performed better, compared to 33% for Biden. Now compare that to a New York Times poll done before the debate, which showed that 48% expected a Trump win versus 43% expecting a Biden win. Now, over the weekend, Biden acknowledged some of his limitations, admitting, "I don't speak as smoothly as I used to. I don't debate as well, but I know what I do know. I know how to tell the truth. I give you my word. I wouldn't be running again if I did not believe with all my heart and soul I can do this job." Alex, let me come to you first. So what's your view about his debate performance and, how that relates to running the country?
I myself have been a debater in the debate team since high school. So if I look at purely from a competition of debate, Joe Biden lost his ground clearly because debate, you have to have your position strong, you have to have your posture that cover and win over the opponent. Of course, this is a presidential campaign. This is a policy debate. And we should not only look at the presidential debate as a contest or personal style, but the contents and substance of their message that they deliver. I think, as a viewer or international viewer, I think they spend too much time to dig the dirt and show how bad the opponents are, and they did not really bring, the true policy that will guide the United States in the next 4 years. Hopefully there will be another debate, and they can focus more on the policy issue that the United States really care. The performance, especially Donald Trump, it's more like he act like a pundit and try to reach out several points that he can gain vote on a certain voting blocks. So that's his probably campaign tactics. But overall, I think we share the frustration of a lot of educated American viewers as well.
Professor Pan, can you lose the debate but still be a good president?
Well, Biden made an attempt to disconnect the relationship between the performance in debate and governing capacity. In theory, yes, but in practice, not really. Because throughout the American history, we see JFK versus Kennedy versus Nixon and Reagan versus Carter. Many cases explains that there is a strong connections for the performance in debate and the consequences electoral victory. So for those who outperform in debate have a greater chance to win the election. So right after the debate, we see the Democratic Party's core states and the polling in the swing states obviously are not sold to Biden's story. So Biden's statement on the attempt to disconnect the relationship between the two essentially failed.
Mm-hmm. And Alex, we know obviously what the US felt in terms of all the reviews and all the analysis. How was it received in Taiwan?
Well, if we can learn from their previous, campaign, I think Taiwan viewers, Taiwan people wanted to see a strong leadership of the United States. Taiwan people expected a leadership that can give Taiwan more assurances. First of all, the debate did not touch on Taiwan, not even Indo-Pacific region. So it's a little bit frustration for Taiwan people. And
were you surprised? Were you surprised about that?
I was surprised because I watched a live broadcast, and when they have the second break, then I would think, come on, it's not likely that China or Taiwan would be brought up.
But that was maybe the editorial of the
Yeah,
CNN.
my first question was that the production team, the producers, and the CNN team, they choose not to ask the related question. If we look at all the questions, I think they put their questions basically on focusing on the issues that the American voters that really care. So it's more domestic oriented.
But there was
question.
Ukraine and Israel.
Well, yeah, but because those are the two military conflicts that ongoing. Taiwan is not in a state of crisis or military conflict. So it's legit that not to bring up Taiwan. But as a Taiwan viewer, I think we have a sense of being left out in the debate.
Professor Pan, no mention of Taiwan. China, there was a slight mention. We will come onto that. Do you think that is strange? Did it surprise you, as it did Alex, that the moderators, CNN, did not think that it was worthy to have a question about China, given that the US has named China as its biggest strategic competitor with the ability and with the intent to reshape the global order? And does it actually contradict some of the candidate campaigns earlier on that we saw, where they're all competing to be harder, tougher on China?
We have noticed there are two ongoing wars in Eastern Europe and Israel right now. So introducing more uncertainties, especially uncertainty with the true rivalry, which is China, would cast clouds on the presidential campaign for both sides. So I think both parties show great restraint on avoiding mention the China issue too much.
So you think because of the weariness of the US public in terms of fighting?
There is another interpretation is that the China issue is not that a issue that really had a sharp difference between the Democrats and the Republicans.
Because it's a bipartisan issue.
Yeah, it's more a bipartisan issue. So it should not be in the debates. But the key, I think, inflation, economy, tax, abortion, those contentious issues are really what the American voters are looking at. So I think CNN team decided to focus on those.
Okay, yeah, and obviously we have a second debate, so it might turn up in the ABC debate in September. So, Alex, Trump did mention China. He accused Biden of being the Manchurian candidate and paid by China. What did you make of that?
Well, this is not a entertainment show. This is a presidential debate. I personally do not agree that President Trump should use Manchurian candidate to describe his opponent, President Joe Biden, in the first place. Secondly,
and that's a reference to
the business connection of his son and others. Negative campaign can be tolerated and understood because we are all democracies. We understand that during the campaign, people will do something and try to get themselves elected.
But that serves to reflect badly on himself, does it not?
Yeah, I think probably he doesn't care. And what he wanted to do, see, he has a skill to repetitively to mention about the benefit of veteran, the people who served. He repetitively talk about the immigrants that crossed the border, living in the luxury hotel. Those kind of message is purely campaign tactics for me. He tried to spin all the questions that are raised by CNN team by diverting that to the pointed or designated voters that he want to reach out.
And you think that he was largely successful in doing that?
Right. I think he will get, the poll shows that people not only think that he won the debate, but also his message was across. That's the key, for the nationwide debate.
It was a message, though, that was full of, as we said, untruths and exaggerations, but this wasn't called out by the moderators. Professor Pan, what did you make of, let's broaden this out. So talking about China, let's assess what you think are the achievements by both Trump and Biden in terms of China. Which one was tougher on China?
As for the Biden administration, he and his team prefers multilateral actions. It's really hard to see that which side is more tough on China. Interestingly, in the previous match between Biden and Trump, we observed a race to the bottom approach to confront with China, but this time we did not see something like that. So I think it takes some more. We should take some time to observe what they actually would have done. And if Biden should get elected, Biden's Democratic Party should get elected, candidates should get elected, we should observe a strong continuity of Biden's foreign policy in this regard. But if Trump should get elected, the hawkish policy should bring back to the stage.
So I read from that you actually think that the Trump administration was harder, was tougher on China, even though people say essentially Biden continued all of those policies. Many places, of course, he reversed the Trump policy, but when it came to China and Taiwan, he continued that. So you disagree with that?
Yes, I disagree with that in a way that Biden has makes a greater efforts in bringing the allies into the picture. Not only the Eastern Asia allies like Japan, South Korea, or the Philippines, the Biden administration also brings in the NATO allies into the picture.
Isn't that, on balance, that's an even tougher position, harder on China than just a bilateral?
Yes, in this regard, yes. It's more of a policy sustainability in this regard. But Trump administration prefers more a unilateral, and which may not guarantee sustainability or continuity of his foreign policy making. He could flip and flop all the time, which he did previously.
Right, Alex. Yeah. And let's talk about arms sales, some of the policies.
It has been a consensus that Taiwan should invest more, number one. Number two, more on the agile, redundancy and smaller platforms that can survive Taiwan longer, in line with the asymmetric strategy. President Trump was the last president who visited Beijing, had a state visit to Beijing, and he had personally received Xi Jinping and his wife to his Florida home. But remember, those were during Xi Jinping's first term. And upon President Trump's return to the United States, just 1 month after his visit to Beijing, his White House issued the Trump administration's national security strategy and called Russia and China as, revisionist power. So there have been a change that took place during, Trump's first term, or his term, and changed after Xi Jinping's first term, and turned into the second term. So there is a timeline issue that we need to put into consideration. I would say that the United States, no matter who wins this election, they will continue to work with Taiwan and help Taiwan to strengthen our self-defense capability and capacity.
Right. Professor Pan, if we compare the arms sales between the two administrations, actually Trump's administration did sign off on a lot more, 18.3 billion US dollars in arms sales compared to 4.4 billion by Biden. But essentially the Trump administration ran up a huge arms sale backlog. And we're still, obviously, as we know, working through that. And those during the Biden administration is when we've been having to try to deliver that. So maybe that would impact on, their willingness to keep signing off on new weapons packages. I just want to drill down a little bit further. So there are some analysts that say that Biden actually went further than Trump in the sense that they continued the TIFA, Trade and Investment Frameworks Agreement talks that Trump started, but then this is now turned into the 21st century trade talks, and this may even lead to some form of bilateral investment agreement, something like that.
I think I would have agreed with the statement that Biden has gone further in a way that he takes a more multilateral approach to deal with China. Trump administration, his policy is of less such traits, so it's more vulnerable to the swift change and flip and flops.
Okay.
So he's more tougher for Biden administration.
Talking of the kind of inconsistencies that Professor was mentioning, Alex, Reuters is reporting that Trump aides have been trying to reassure Seoul and Tokyo officials that they would still support their alliance. Of course, there's the trilateral alliance between the US, South Korea, and Japan, and that Trump's so-called smash mouth on allies ends at the shores of the Indo-Pacific. How do you reconcile Trump? Is he, like their aides say, actually he's simply trying to get these allies, whether it's NATO or even South Korea, to spend more on their own defense?
Of course, his advisor, he got many foreign policy advisors, and some of them traveled to Japan and Korea and try to reassure Asian allies. But Asian audience also, or policymakers also remember that Donald Trump spoke in a private, dinner with his donors and said that he would bomb Beijing, and as a retaliation if China attacked Taiwan. I think,
Is that contradictory?
Right. So in a sense that we should take his words on face value first, in the first place. Secondly, we need to think hard, because Trump is, at least in his, past, 4 years, he had been very clear that there should be no free rider in security, and no country should take more money from the United States, and the supply chain should go back to the United States. I think these lines has its own continuity. So I think when there are encouraging or positive message about Japan and Korea, I think the policy makers in Seoul and Tokyo would also worry about if Trump comes back, how would them, Japan and Korea being punished if they have too much trade surplus against the United States.
Yeah. So why do you think these officials were taking the time and the trouble to go and reassure them? Why do they care?
I think, first, they are advisors. They were former officials, and they are helping Trump's campaign. I know.
But the voters are in the US,
I know some
right?
of them.
They're not in South Korea and Japan.
But after this news came out, the Trump campaign issued a short statement saying that no one should represent, Mr. Trump in talking about the foreign policy in the next 4 years. So I think, this is a democratic society. Campaign is fun. A lot of people will claim that they have the power to understand the candidate representing his policy line. We will see what's going on.
Okay. Yeah. Professor Pan, let's move on to, we mentioned, of course, that some of the Democrats got a scare after the debate. And one of the possible Democratic alternatives is Gavin Newsom, the California governor. So here's the governor in October 2023 in a meeting with Xi Jinping in Beijing. Take a look.
Today, 2 million Chinese Americans live in the state of California. We truly are the gateway to China. With respect, in the spirit of figuring out a way to define the terms of our future, one of mutuality, one where we benefit the Commonwealth. I don't think there's a more essential relationship. There will not be one more essential than the relationship we formed together, the United States and China, in our lifetimes.
Professor Pan, Newsom's relationship with China and Xi Jinping, it seems quite rosy, it seems quite warm and quite close.
Well, California has been a major state for a significant portion of the Chinese immigrants. So Gavin has been, it's not surprising that Gavin would be friendly to such population by showing, by making a visit to Beijing and showing a friendly attitude. But as for the details of his policies, it really depends on whether he is going to inherit Biden's team of foreign policy making.
Alex, do you want to talk about Newsom or do you want to talk about Gretchen?
Well, Governor Newsom is really a handsome guy, and right after the debate was broadcasted, one of my friends sent to me a photo that Governor Newsom shook hands with President Xi Jinping, and he captioned them saying, "Another Manchurian candidate?" ? So sometimes when we look at these, it's fun, but I think Governor Newsom had been talked a lot by a lot of Democrats and thinking that he could be a future candidate for representing the Democratic Party. Another more...
And would that mean that if he were, would that mean that the relations between the US and China will become very warm?
Well, that we don't know about it because Governor of California needs business and investment. And so that's a different, it's not purely a national security concern for a Californian governor. Another governor who had been named is a female governor from Michigan, Governor Whitmer, who has a Chinese name and visited Taiwan twice in the past year.
But not China.
Not China. So she considered herself a Taiwan's friend. She just opened a Michigan, state of Michigan trade office in Taiwan, in Taipei, in March this year. So I think we can comfortably say that the governor of Michigan has many friends in Taiwan and had met President Tsai Ing-wen twice. And so we will see, because how the Democratic Party would figure out, from today all the way to the August convention, there will be a lot of challenges, and they're mostly involved in domestic politics. It's not China, it's not Taiwan.
Okay, Professor Pan, final question. So in the debate, Trump accused or blamed Biden for leading the US into what he called World War III. And Trump said that the leaders of China, North Korea and Russia don't fear President Biden and they could start a war. So in your view, is the world safer under Biden or Trump?
Well, I think the world should be probably more safer under Biden rather than Trump. Well, as we can see, that Trump speaks more than his action, while Biden takes more action than talks. So I think Trump would take take more aggressive approach to confront with China. Especially, he constantly mentioned about the trade-offs between political interest and economic interest. So he is very highly unpredictable, and there are China experts says that they would prefer Trump over Biden for such reason.
Okay. Alex, diplomacy is about brinksmanship, is about negotiation, about calling people's bluff.
Right.
Is the world safer under Biden or Trump?
I think under Biden, I agree with Professor Wei. It would be more predictable of American policy line. For Donald Trump, buckle up. We need to see that whether a real policy is. What he had been saying, like bombing Beijing or raising 60% of all tax of all products from China into America. It's different from the foreign affairs articles that are written by his foreign policy advisor. So I think we need to wait and see that, whether a possible Trump administration in the next 4 years will have real, impact on the future of this part of the world.
Thank you so much, Alexander Huang and Pan Hsin-hsin, for joining Taiwan Talks today. If you liked our show, please search for us on YouTube, give us a thumbs up and hit subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching the show today. Stay safe and see you next time.